The human cadet flew backward through the air with brutal finality, crashing into the weapon's rack with a sound like thunder. The entire structure collapsed in a deafening cascade of metal, burying her beneath its weight. Vex, the four-armed insectoid with bronze chitinous plates covering his torso, stood in the center of the training mat with all four fists still raised, compound red eyes gleaming with predatory satisfaction. Pathetic. The word came as a harsh click of mandibles, spreading wide in what passed for a grin among his kind. Is this really what Earth sends to the Galactic Defense Academy? Riley pushed herself from beneath the twisted equipment, her dark hair matted with sweat, one hand pressed against her ribs. She said nothing, just limped toward the mat's edge with mechanical precision, her expression a perfect blank slate. The harsh white overhead lights cast sharp shadows across her bruised face like war paint. Instructor Krell, massive and reptilian, with purple-blue scales and 3 vertical eyes arranged down his elongated skull, watched from the elevated platform. His clawed hands gripped the railing with enough force to leave marks in the metal. Cadet Riley, you are dismissed. Report to Medical Bay for evaluation. Riley nodded once and walked toward the exit without acknowledging anyone. The door hissed shut behind her with finality. Finally, Vex said, flexing all 4 arms simultaneously with theatrical satisfaction. Maybe now we can train with actual warriors instead of babysitting humans. Zara, the crystalline cadet with translucent segments and glowing organs pulsing beneath her surface, shifted uncomfortably on her bench. Her bioluminescence flickered anxiously from purple to worried pink. That seemed excessive, she said quietly. Excessive? Truth is excessive, Thorne replied. The serpentine cadet flicked his forked tongue, his green-silver scales catching the light. She has lost every single match this cycle. 43 consecutive defeats. She does not belong here. Vex's chitinous exoskeleton clicked as he moved with renewed confidence. Command made a mistake accepting humans into the program. They are weak, slow, fragile. He gestured dismissively toward the door Riley had used. That one especially. She barely speaks, barely trains, barely tries. Dead weight. Instructor Krell's 3 eyes narrowed dangerously, his scales shifting from purple to a darker, more ominous violet. Cadet Vex, your commentary is noted. Now run the obstacle course. All of you. 40 minutes. The cadets scrambled to their feet and headed for the exit. Vex was still grinning, all 4 forearms swinging as he walked like a predator who just claimed fresh kill. Later that evening, in the barracks common area, dim amber lights cast long shadows across metallic bunks and central tables. Vex sat surrounded by 6 other cadets, holding a data tablet displaying combat statistics. Through narrow windows, distant stars glimmered against the infinite black void. Look at this, Vex said, mandibles clicking with amusement. Riley's performance metrics. Bottom 1% in strength assessments, bottom 3% in speed trials, bottom 5% in tactical simulations. He passed the tablet to Thorne with one hand while gesturing dramatically with his other 3 arms. I have seen maintenance drones with better combat ratings. Thorne's scales rippled with laughter. How did she even pass the entrance trials? Sympathy? Another cadet offered cynically. The Academy wanted to appear inclusive. Political correctness overriding common sense. Zara sat on her bunk in the corner, her crystalline body dimming with genuine discomfort. Maybe she is struggling with adjustment. Different gravity, different atmosphere levels. We all adjusted, she offered weakly. We all adapted, Vex interrupted sharply, his bronze exoskeleton glinting like polished armor. I am from a high-gravity world with triple Earth's standard. Thorne is from an aquatic environment. You literally process information through light refraction. We adapted. She refuses to. The door slid open silently. Riley entered, moving slowly, medical wrapping visible around her torso beneath her training uniform. She walked to her bunk without acknowledging anyone, sat down, and began organizing her equipment locker with mechanical, methodical precision. Vex raised his voice deliberately, projecting his words like weapons. Hey, human. Question. Why do you bother showing up? You are wasting everyone's time, especially yours. Riley continued folding her uniform, not turning around, not responding. She cannot even defend herself verbally, Thorne hissed with visible satisfaction. Pathetic. Riley stood, closed her locker with quiet finality, and walked toward the bathroom without uttering a single word. The door sealed behind her. Vex threw all 4 arms up in exaggerated frustration. See? Not even angry. No fire, no pride. Just nothing. Earth must have scraped the bottom of their genetic barrel to send that one. The other cadets laughed, their voices echoing through the common area. Zara's bioluminescence pulsed an uncomfortable orange, but she remained silent, her discomfort growing with every cruel word. The next morning in the combat arena, Instructor Krell's 3 eyes tracked every cadet as they assembled on the mats. His massive reptilian frame cast a long shadow under the harsh white lights. New training protocol, he announced, his scales shifting to military gray. Survival scenario simulations. Teams of 2. You will face escalating combat situations. Performance determines your continued enrollment. Excited murmurs rippled through the assembled cadets. Vex's mandibles spread wide in anticipation. Finally, real challenges. Krell's clawed hand gestured, and a holographic display materialized in the air, showing random team assignments. Names began appearing in pairs on the glowing interface. Gasps echoed through the arena. Vex found his name paired with Riley. His forearms dropped to his sides. His compound red eyes went wide with obvious shock and disbelief. "Instructor, this must be an error," he protested immediately. "No error," Krell said, his 3 eyes fixed on Vex with unmovable authority. "Teams are final. You will deploy in 1 hour. Prepare accordingly." Vex's exoskeleton clicked rapidly, a sign of deep agitation. "But sir, she will get me killed." "Her performance record speaks for itself." "Her performance record is irrelevant to your assignment," Krell interrupted, his purple-blue scales darkening with absolute authority. "You will work together or you will fail together." Dismissed. The cadets scattered to gear up. Vex stormed toward Riley, who was calmly checking her equipment harness with practiced efficiency. He jabbed one of his 4 fingers toward her chest with barely contained frustration. "Listen carefully, human. You stay behind me. You follow my orders exactly. You do not improvise. You do not think. You just do exactly what I say. Understood?" Riley looked up at him, her expression neutral and unreadable. "Sure. That is it. Sure." Vex's mandibles clicked in mounting frustration. "Do you even understand what is at stake? This simulation determines everything. Everything." Riley returned to her equipment check without responding further. "I understand. I understand." Vex wanted to throw something, to scream, to do anything but stand here. Instead, he stalked away, all 4 arms gesturing wildly as he disappeared toward the preparation areas. The simulation zone materialized around them like a nightmare made real. A ruined urban environment with collapsed buildings, smoke drifting through abandoned streets, emergency red lighting pulsing from damaged infrastructure. Vex and Riley stood in a narrow alley, weapons drawn, their HUD displays showing the objective: extract intelligence data from a compromised facility 3 blocks away while hostile forces hunted them relentlessly. Vex moved forward in a tactical crouch, his bronze exoskeleton gleaming dully in the emergency lights, his forearms holding his plasma rifle steady while his eyes scanned constantly for threats. Riley followed exactly 10 paces behind, completely silent, her movements economical and precise. "Stay close," Vex hissed without looking back. "And stay quiet." They turned a corner. 3 hostile combat drones appeared, sleek black machines hovering 5 feet off the ground, weapons charging with an ominous whine that set every instinct on edge. Vex fired immediately, plasma bolts screaming through the air. He hit one drone, sending it spinning into a wall where it exploded in sparks and burning smoke. The other 2 drones returned fire with lethal intent. Energy bolts scorched the pavement where Vex dove for cover behind a destroyed vehicle. He rolled, came up firing with 2 of his arms while his other 2 reloaded with practiced efficiency. Suppressing fire now. He shouted back to Riley. Silence answered him. Vex risked a glance backward. Riley was gone. "What the—" The explosion cut him off. Both remaining drones detonated simultaneously, raining burning debris across the street in a violent cascade. Vex's compound eyes tracked the trajectory of the blast back to a 3rd-story window where Riley crouched, a launcher balanced on her shoulder, smoke curling from its barrel in lazy wisps. She dropped from the window, hit an awning, rolled across it with perfect balance, and landed in the street in a flawless combat crouch. She was already moving before Vex processed what had even happened. "Wait." Vex started, but Riley was already sprinting toward the objective building, moving like liquid death. He scrambled after her, all 4 limbs pumping in desperate pursuit. "I said stay behind me." Riley hit the facility entrance at full speed, rolled through the doorway as security lasers activated with deadly precision, and came up inside with her weapon raised and ready. Vex crashed through seconds later, still shouting, nearly running into her. She had already neutralized 2 interior guards, their weapons disarmed, their bodies slumped unconscious against the walls. "How did you?" Vex began, his mind struggling to process. "Data room is 2 floors up," Riley said quietly, already moving toward the stairwell. "Security grid has a 3-second delay between sensor sweeps. Move during the gaps." She demonstrated, sliding through the stairwell door precisely as a red laser grid swept past, missing her by mere inches. Vex followed clumsily, nearly triggering the sensors twice before clearing the threshold with racing heartbeat. On the 2nd floor, hostile forces converged from both directions, weapons raised and firing. Vex raised his rifle, preparing to engage with everything he had. Riley grabbed one of his forearms and yanked him sideways into a maintenance shaft he hadn't even noticed existed. They squeezed through narrow ductwork, emerged behind enemy positions, and Riley moved through them like smoke, like a ghost, disabling weapons and striking pressure points with surgical precision. Non-lethal, devastating, perfect. Vex just stood there, all forearms hanging uselessly, watching this quiet human cadet systematically dismantle an entire enemy squad without firing a single shot. It was like watching a master artist at work. They reached the data room. Riley interfaced with the terminal, downloaded the intelligence in exactly 12 seconds, and turned toward the exit without hesitation. "Extraction point is compromised," she said with absolute calmness. "Alternate route through the eastern wall. There is a weakness in the structure. Low-grade explosive will create an exit." "I did not scan any structural," Vex started. Riley was already placing charges with expert precision. She looked at him, her eyes suddenly alive with something dangerous. "Cover your eyes." The wall exploded outward in a controlled detonation. Riley ran through the smoke and flames, landed in the street, and started sprinting toward the extraction zone. Vex followed, his bronze exoskeleton covered in dust and debris, his compound eyes unable to process what was happening, what had happened, what he'd been so completely wrong about. They crossed the extraction boundary. The simulation dissolved. They stood back in the training arena under harsh white lights, the contrast sudden and shocking. Instructor Krell's 3 eyes fixed on them from his elevated platform. His purple-blue scales had shifted to interested green. "Simulation complete," he announced. "Time, for minutes, 18 seconds. Previous record, 11 minutes, 42 seconds. His clawed hand gestured toward a holographic leaderboard. "You set a new academy record by a substantial margin. A very substantial margin." Vex stared at the numbers, then at Riley, then back at the numbers again. His mind couldn't reconcile what he was seeing with the cadet he thought he knew. Riley was already walking toward the exit, removing her gear harness with methodical efficiency. "Wait," Vex said, his voice suddenly small, diminished. "You all this time? You could do that." Riley paused at the door, glanced back over her shoulder. Her expression remained neutral, unreadable. "You never asked what I was bad at," she said simply. "But your scores, your performance records," Vex protested weakly. 43 defeats, hand-to-hand combat in a regulated sparring environment with rules. Hand-to-hand combat in a regulated sparring environment with rules, following prescribed technique, fighting one-on-one, winning by points, Riley said flatly. She shrugged. "Yeah, I am terrible at that. Sport fighting is not my specialty." Vex's mandibles opened, but no sound came out. His mind was frantically trying to recompute everything he thought he understood. "I scored bottom 5% in tactical simulations because I kept breaking scenario parameters and ignoring authorized strategies," Riley continued calmly, as if discussing the weather. "I scored low on strength assessments because they measure raw power, not efficiency. I scored low on speed trials because they test sprinting, not tactical movement." She tilted her head slightly, and for just a moment, Vex saw something utterly cold and lethal in her eyes. "Before the academy, I spent 8 years with Earth's Covert Operations Unit. Solo infiltration, asset extraction, high-value target elimination. The kind of work where regulations are obstacles and enemy rules are weaknesses to exploit." She turned back toward the door. "Command wanted someone to teach you all that the galaxy is more dangerous than sparring matches with point systems. That real threats do not follow rules. That sometimes the quietest person in the room is quiet because they are already calculating how to kill everyone in its 6 different ways." She pushed the door open. See you next simulation, Vex. The door sealed behind her, leaving him standing alone with his thoughts and his growing dread. Instructor Krell's 3 eyes moved to Vex, studying him with obvious amusement. His scales had shifted to satisfied purple. Cadet Vex, you appear confused, Krell observed. Vex's forearms hung limply at his sides. His bronze exoskeleton had lost all its earlier confidence and swagger. Sir, why did she not defend herself? All those defeats. The mockery. She just took it. Because Cadet Riley's mission, Krell said carefully, his scales now shifting to a deadly, ominous black, was not to win your approval. Her mission was to evaluate this academy's tactical readiness by posing as a weak recruit and observing how cadets respond to perceived weakness in their ranks. His 3 eyes narrowed with lethal intent. She has been filing detailed reports to command for 16 weeks. Your treatment of her features very prominently in those reports. Every cruel word. Every mocking comment. Every dismissal. Vex felt his internal temperature drop, like a stone into an abyss. Every word he'd said echoed back in his mind with new, horrifying context. Tomorrow's training begins at 0500 hours, Krell interrupted, his voice like ice. Cadet Riley will be running advanced combat scenarios. Attendance is mandatory. All of you will attend. His massive reptilian frame turned toward the exit, his movements slow and deliberate. I suggest you rest well tonight, Cadet Vex. You will need it. All of you will need it. The instructor's footsteps echoed away into the profound silence of the empty arena. Vex stood alone in that vast space, staring at the holographic leaderboard still displaying Riley's record-breaking time. Around him, the harsh white lights seemed suddenly much brighter, much more exposing, like a predator's unwavering gaze. His 4 arms started trembling. His confidence, his arrogance, his certainty, all of it crumbled beneath the weight of understanding. Somewhere in the facility, Riley was already preparing tomorrow's training scenarios. The ones command had specifically authorized her to design for cadets who had underestimated humans. For cadets like him. Vex looked toward the combat arena's exit door. It seemed much farther away than it had this morning. The walk would feel eternal. Everything would feel different now. Everything had changed, though nothing had really changed except his comprehension of the quiet operative who had been silently observing and judging them all along. The HFY Sage of Stars would have approved of the lesson being taught today. Humanity's greatest strength was not in what others saw, but in what they failed to see coming.